So, hello Ben and my guest. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you. And you?
Ben, your voice is very low.
Ben is on mute.
No, no,
Can you hear
Ben
me?
voice is. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I hear you.
Okay, okay, that's good.
Okay. So, today we discuss about DRS, Distributed Resource Scheduler, and your vSphere. Okay. So,
Okay,
sometimes what happens, let's suppose you have two host servers, your virtual machines, let's suppose uh, three virtual machines. And your all virtual machines are running on a single host and other host is completely free. Okay, so
okay,
DRS help you to distribute the load across the servers. Okay, so there are some automation levels, so you can use the you can select automation level. Using that, DRS can automatically place place your VMs on best suited host, or you can select the manual mode. So in the manual mode, DRS provides some recommendations to place your machine on which host is best for the your virtual machine. So in this chapter, we discuss about the DRS. So as you scale your vSphere environment, you must be aware of the vSphere features and the functions that will help you to manage the host in your environment. So with vSphere DRS, you can improve your service level by guaranteeing the appropriate ratios to your virtual machines, and you can monitor and manage more infrastructures per system administrators. So in this chapter, we describe the functionality of vSphere DRS cluster. We create a vSphere DRS cluster, review the information about the DRS cluster, and remove a host from the DRS cluster. So vSphere DRS cluster aggregate computing capacity across a collections of server into a logical resource pool. And DRS allocate the available resource among the virtual machines based on predefined rules that reflect business need and changing priorities. So basically, DRS help to improve your resource allocation across the all host and resource pool. And DRS collect the resource, use information from all host and virtual machine in the cluster, and give the recommendations or the migrate the virtual machine into one of two situations. Like one is initial placement. So when you power on your virtual machine in the cluster for the first time, the vSphere DRS either place your virtual machine on the best host or make a recommendations like provide a notification to you to start your machine on that particular host. And second situation is load balancing. So DRS attempt to improve resource use across the cluster by performing the automatic migration of the virtual machines or by providing a recommendation of the virtual machine migration. So if you select automation level, so at the middle, if your cluster goes unbalanced, the DRS move your virtual machine, migrate your virtual machine on the other host, or can provide a recommendation to you to migrate your virtual machine. So there are some prerequisites for DRS cluster. DRS work best when VMs meet with vSphere vMotion migration requirement. So to implement the DRS, first you need to implement the vMotion. So we already implement the vMotion in our labs. And to use the vSphere for your load balance, the host in the cluster must be part of vSphere vMotion network. And if they are not vSphere, DRS can still make initial placement recommendations. If you are not using the vMotion or any of host is not a member of your vMotion network, then you cannot migrate your virtual machine in the middle when your cluster goes unbalanced. Okay, but the DRS can still make the initial placement recommendations when you start your machines. And to use the shared storage, configure all hosts in the cluster, and all hosts in the cluster must have access to the same data stores. Then your automation level settings. So by configuring the automation level of the initial placement of the virtual machine and dynamically balance the virtual machines are running. So there are three types of the automation level. One is the manual, partially automated, and fully automated. So if you select the manual automation, so in the manual mode, the DRS provide the recommendations only. It cannot automatically move your virtual machine to the another host. Let's suppose you are going to power on your virtual machine. So when you power on, DRS give you the recommendation which host is the best for that machine according to the load. And in middle of, if your cluster goes imbalance, their DRS provide a recommendation. You need to migrate your virtual machine to that host. Okay. If you select partially automated, so when you start your machine, it will automatically place that machine on a best host. But in middle of, if your cluster goes unbalanced, the DRS generate a recommendation. It cannot migrate that machine automatically to the another host. You just generate a recommendation. So you need to manually migrate that machine. If you select fully automated, so DRS automatically place your virtual machine on the best host at the time of power on. And if your cluster goes unbalanced, DRS automatically migrate your machine to another host. So there are three levels of automation: manual, partially automated, and fully automated. Then there are 5 levels of thresholds. When DRS like migrate your machine or generate a recommendations, so there are 5 levels. So level 1 is apply only priority 1 recommendations, and the priority 1 recommendations are like that. The vCenter server apply only the recommendations that must be taken to satisfy the cluster constraints such as Affinity rules or host maintenance. If you select level 2, so in the level 2, it's apply the priority 1 and priority 2, means it's also include your level 1. So level 2 recommendation is like that, the recommendation that promise a significant improvement in your cluster load balance. Level 3 is by default selected, and it's use priority 1, priority 2, priority 3 recommendations, and priority 3 recommendations is like that. The vCenters have applied the recommendations that promise at least good improvement in your cluster load balance. Level 4 is include your upper priorities, priority 1, 2, 3, 4, and the priority 4 recommendations that promise even a moderated improvement in your cluster load balance. And the last is level 5, you can say aggressive. It's apply all the recommendations. It's promise even a significant improvement in your load balancing cluster. So there are 3 types of automation level and 5 levels of recommendations. Then there are some other settings like predictive DRS. So basically predictive DRS, in the predictive DRS, your vSphere DRS and visualize operation manager combinedly predict the future demands and determine when and where hotspot will be occurs. Okay. So using this feature, you can predict your future statics, and based on statics, make some decisions. So DRS data collector retrieve the statics from the following source like resource use statics from the host and predictive statics from the visualize operation manager server, and predicted usage statics always take a precedence over the current usage statics. Other feature is swap file locations. So you can select your location of your virtual machine swap files. So you can, there is 2 options. You can use the same directory with your virtual machine data, or you can specify any specific data store on the host. They are the Affinity rules. like some cluster other settings like virtual machine affinity rules. So in the DRS there are two type of the rules. One is the affinity rules, one is the anti-affinity rules. So according to the affinity rules is used when you place your multiple virtual machines on the same host. And if you want to play on the on different hosts, we select the anti-affinity rules. So affinity rules used for the multi virtual machine systems where the virtual machines communicate heavily with one others, and anti-affinity rules used for the multi virtual machine system where the load balance or high availability is desired. Okay. To place your virtual machine on the same host, we use affinity rule. To place your virtual machine on different hosts, we use anti-affinity rules. You can also create your virtual machines group and your host groups. So a VM group can be belong to multiple virtual machines, DRS group, and host can belong to the multiple host DRS group. Okay. And a virtual machine can be belong to the multiple VM groups and host can be belong to the multiple host groups. And between the virtual machine and host and virtual machine and group, virtual machine group and host group, you can implement the affinity and anti-affinity rules. Like that, you can set your affinity and affinity rules. So basically, when you set your rules, there are two types of the rules. One is required, one is preferential. You can say should or must. Okay. So preferential rules like should rules can be violated if necessary, but required rules cannot be violated. So if you select like must, so those rules cannot be violated. And if you select should, those rules can be like violated. There are some other settings of VM automation levels, like you can uh, override your VM automation level on base of your VMs. On some particular VMs, you want to implement you want to like define other automation levels, like or fully automated or manual or partial, according to your requirement. So when you're adding or moving your host in a vSphere DRS cluster, you can keep the resource pool hierarchy of the existing host. If the DRS is enabled, the host pools are lost. Okay. You can check your informations like your cluster is balanced or not, with host. You can check your host CPU utilizations. You can check your recommendations by executing this run DRS now. Otherwise, provide the recommendations after a predefined time interval. You can monitor your task and events in monitoring tab, maintenance mode and standby modes. So to service a host in the cluster, like installing the more memory or CPU or other hardware, you must need to place your host in maintenance mode. So VM on the host, should we migrate to the another host or shut down? You cannot power on or migrate the VM to hosts that are entering in the maintenance mode. And while in the maintenance mode, host does not allow to deploy or power on a VM. And when DRS is in fully automated mode, the powered on VM is automatically migrate from host is being placed into the maintenance modes. And when a host is placed in the standby, it's powered off. And standby mode is used by the vSphere distributed power management to optimize your power usage. Removing the host from the cluster, if you are removing your host from the cluster, so before removing a host from the cluster, the resource pool can remain with your cluster because a host must be in maintenance mode and all virtual machines running on the host are powered off, and the resource available for your cluster decrease. When you remove your host or you put your host in the maintenance mode, the resource of cluster will be decreased. Disabling the vSphere DRS or restoring a resource pool tree. So let's suppose you made some resource pool on your DRS cluster and you are going to disable your DRS. So what happened with cluster? So you may turn off vSphere DRS for a cluster. So if you are disabling the DRS, resource pool are removed from the cluster. So when vSphere DRS is disabled, the cluster resource pool hierarchy and affinity rules are not re-established when you again turn on back your DRS. So to avoid the loss of the resource pool, save a snapshot of the resource pool tree on your local machine. And you can restore a previous saved resource pool tree snapshot when you are enabling your DRS. There is a triangle chart of performance based on the technologies. So if you select like use the network traffic shapings, so a little bit your performance will be increased. If you modify your virtual machine CPU and memory resolution, so it's increase more performance. If you modify the resource pool CPU memory limitations and resolutions, it's improve more. And if you use the NIC teamings, you use the storage multipathing, or if you use the DRS cluster, so like that, your performance will be increase or decrease. So based on the technology, which one you are use. And what happens when you are using the high availability with the DRS? So HA might not be able to fail over virtual machines for the server regions. So vSphere HA admission control is disabled and the resources are insufficient in the remaining host to power on all the failed VMs. So required VM affinity rules prevent the vSphere HA from failing over. So sufficient aggregated resource exist, but they are fragmented across the host. So in such case, vSphere HA use the DRS to try to adjust the cluster by migrating the VMs to defragmented the resource. So there is a lab in which we create a load imbalance, then we create a DRS cluster, verify the functionality, then we test the affinity rules, anti-affinity rules, and VM host affinity rules. Okay, so I'm going to launch my. So I have already launched my lab. Here I'm going to open my vCenter server. So according to the lab, in the first task we create the load imbalance. We run CPU busy files on the VMs to generate the loads. So I'm going to open the vSphere web client. So according to the lab, we move our all machines on ESXi 2. Okay. After that, we power on our virtual machines and run the CPU busy file in the first task. So let's check about the machines. So all machines are on ESXi 2. It's good. If any machine on ESXi 1, then migrate that machine to ESXi 2. And I'm going to power on all machines. Connect with console. Then 3, then 4, then 2. Okay. So we powered on all the machines and run that cpbg file. Okay. So let's create the load on your ESXi 2. If we check there, look the loads, and it is still increasing. Okay. Within a few seconds, your load will be increased to high rate with the high rate. Look there. Okay. So according to the second lab, we create a DRS cluster. Okay. So we already created a vSphere cluster. We are going to turn on that DRS feature on this cluster. Okay. So right click on your cluster, go to setting, select the vSphere DRS, edit, and turn on vSphere DRS. And here in the automation level, I'm going to select manual. Okay. Extend this one. And in this, I'm going to select the aggressive. Okay. Leave other settings as default. So we reconfigured our cluster with DRS. Now we verify the functionality of this cluster. So select our cluster, go to monitor. In the monitor, we select vSphere DRS, and here we run this DRS now. So it generates some recommendations for you. If you look, the utilization of this host is very high, and if we check about our cluster, so look, there is generate a recommendation, migrate the Windows 10 flow from ESXi 2 to ESXi 1. Okay, if you look here, the CPU utilization. So look there, the ESXi 1 is completely free, and the ESXi 2 CPU utilization is approx 80%. And if you look here, the cluster, vSphere DRS, I'm going to expand vSphere DRS, is saying cluster unbalanced, imbalance, automation level manual, recommendation this one. There is one DRS recommendation, and this is your recommendation, DRS recommendation. So it's saying migrate your machine. So I'm going to just click on this, apply the recommendation. So it start to migrating your virtual machine. Look at the recent task panel. It's migrate your Windows 10 flow to ESXi 1.
solves the problem automatically.
Yeah, it's not automatically. We select the manual automation level manual. So we need to run the DRS and apply the recommendations. If you select manual, so you have to fully automated, it do all these things automatically without any user interaction. Okay.
Okay.
So look there, now your Windows 10 4 is running on ESXi. Okay. And if you look, and DRS CPU utilization is a little bit balanced, and if you check in the summary, it's still showing imbalance because one host utilization is 50%, another host is utilized 75%. Okay, so DRS clusters work like that. I'm going to stop this file.
So the DRS recommendation about maybe the, I don't know, maybe the host, the XSL, any information that it brings is necessary, or sometimes you can ignore.
Yeah, basically, it's just the recommendations. You can also ignore. Okay,
Okay.
but you need to analyze your environment.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
basically, it's provide the best location for your virtual machines to provide the resource
Okay.
according to the resource utilization in your environment.
No. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes these things happening in our environment. Our some hosts are completely free or less utilized, and some hosts are utilized, uh, are heavily utilized. So the DRS help you to distribute your resource. Basically, schedule your virtual machines across your host servers to load balance. Okay. So complete these three tasks, then we move forward.
Okay.
Okay. Complete these tasks.
Naveen.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, sir. I can't
Yes,
see.
Mahesh?
I can't see the DRS. I did it. I completed, but why I'm not able to see?
Share your screen.
Yeah.
You turn on the DRS?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, okay, log in on your web console.
Oh, we need to open web console, is it?
Yeah. There is no difference, but the web console is provide the better interface to manage the things. Okay, select your cluster. Go to monitor. Select vSphere DRS. So here you have a recommendation. Look a little bit down in the DRS recommendation. Here the recommendations about the Windows 10 too. If you apply, it is start to migrate that virtual machine. What is
I,
refresh? Run the DRS. Wait a few seconds. Wait a few seconds. Scroll down this one. Yeah, scroll down this middle panel.
Scroll it down.
Yeah, you have two recommendations.
Yeah.
Yeah, apply the recommendation.
I'm getting error.
What error? The selected recommendations have expired. Okay, your recommendations has expired. No, just wait. Run the DRS and wait a few seconds. Wait few second or few minutes. Okay, go to summary. Yeah, this one. Scroll down and expand the vSphere DRS. Scroll down. Yeah. How many recommendations? Two recommendations are there. Two recommendations. Go to monitor. Apply the recommendations. Okay. Okay. Do one thing. Go to VM on top, middle panel top.
Where?
VM on top, on middle panel. Yeah, here. There is no host option. Okay. Right click on name column. Right click on name column. Select show hide columns. Second last. Yeah. Choose check mark the host last one. Host last one. Check this. Okay. Scroll on right side. So your all machines are running on ESXi too.
Yeah.
Okay. You run that CPU busy files inside those machines?
Yeah.
Okay. So go to monitor. Okay. Now apply the recommendation. Now look there, it's migrating your two virtual machines to another host. Windows 10.4 and 10.2. Look at the recent task panel at the bottom. Okay.
Yeah. Why it is doing now? Why it didn't do that
Yeah,
time?
basically those recommendations was expired.
Okay.
So you can press this button, run DRS now, and wait some minutes, 1 or 2 minutes, and you go to your new recommendations. Okay. Now you can
Okay.
find your two machines are running on ESXi 1 and 2 machines is running on ESXi 2. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Ben, you complete your task?
It's giving me this recommendation has expired, so I'm just trying to see why.
Yeah, basically run the DRS now and wait a
Okay,
few minutes.
now okay, now it has started migrating virtual machines. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I
So
just
let's start our task 4. So I'm sharing my screen. So task 4 is about the affinity rule, VM affinity rules. So in this chapter, in this lab, we configure the affinity on the virtual machine. Affinity like force your virtual machine to run on the same host. Okay.
okay.
So I'm going to our vCenter server. Okay. Configure, select your cluster, configure, and here we select host and VM rules. Click on add, and here we provide a name of our rule. So according to the lab, what is the name of rule is Colgate Windows 10 VMs. Okay, copy. Let's put the same name. Send. Okay. We are going to we want to run all Windows 10 machines on the same host. Okay. Enable this rule, and here keep virtual machines together. Okay. Means the group of the selected virtual machines will be run on the same host. And here we select the machines. So according to the lab, we are going to select Windows 2 and Windows 3. So Windows 2 is running on ESXi 2 and Windows 3 is running on also ESXi 2. Okay. Let's suppose I'm going to Windows 10 2 and 10.4. Okay. Both machines are on the different hosts. Okay. Done. Let's check the recommendation. DRS recommendations. Now we have another recommendations like migrate your Windows 10.3 from ESXi 2 to ESXi 1. Let's again run the DRS. I'm getting two recommendations. Migrate your 10.3 to ESXi 1 and 10.4 to ESXi 2. Apply. So according to the Affinity rule, 10.2 or 10.4 VMs must be on the same host. Okay, and if you look here, 10.2 and 10.4 are on another different. One second, let's refresh this one. Ten two and 10.4. So look there, the 10.2 and 10.4 are on the same host. Okay. So affinity rule force your virtual machines to run on the same host. Similarly, anti-affinity rules force your virtual machines to run on the different hosts. We are going to disable this rule. Select, edit, and uncheck this one to disable. Okay. Now the task 4 is about the anti-affinity rule. So we create another rule here, add rule. Rule name will be separate the Windows 10 VMs. So as we know, 10.2 and 10.4 are on the same host. We want to run those machines on the different host. So select, enable this one and select here, separate the virtual machines. And here, add your virtual machine. 10.2 and 10.4 are now on the same host. After creating this rule, generate a recommendation. So if you look in the recommendation, there is a recommendation for 10.4. Let's run the DRS again. So there is a rule, there is a like an action to migrate your Windows 10.2 from ESXi 2 to 1. And look there, the priority 1 is high. Okay, and it's apply the affinity rules. Due to anti-affinity rule, these are recommendations generated by the DRS. Let's apply. To start the migration of your Windows 10.2 to VM. Okay. So if you look in the VMs, 10.2 and 10.4 are now running on the different host. Okay. Let's try to delete this rule. Select and delete from here. Okay. The last task is creating, testing and disable your VM host affinity rule. So in this we create two groups, one group for the VMs, one group for the host, and then we implement the affinity rules between them. Okay. So first of all, here I'm going to select the VM and host group. Here I click on add, and here I'm going to provide the name like Windows 10 VMs, and in the type we select the VM group, and here I'm going to select Windows 10.3 and 10.4. Okay. Similarly, we are going to create another group, add a VM host group. Name is like host group. And select here in the type host group and add your host here. So I'm going to select host 1. Okay. Okay. Now we are going to configure the affinity rules between them. So go to your VM host rules, click here, add, and in the name, like run only host 1 and select here VM to host. Okay. And in the VM group, we select the Windows 10 VM. And here you can implement like required or preferential like should or must. So should rule can be violated, but must rule cannot be violated. So here I'm going to select that must one, must run in host group, must run on host in group. Okay, and host group is host group. Okay. Now let's check the recommendations. Run the recommendation. So look there, there's some recommendations to fix the hard VM host affinity rules. If you run this one, your Windows 10.2 and 10.3, 10.3 and 10.4 will be on the same host, on host 1. Okay, like that in the host group, you can add multiple hosts. So the VM groups virtual machines will be run on any host that are the member of that group. Similarly, you can select the must run or must not run like. Okay, so look there. The 10.3 and 10.4 are running on the ESXi 1. And 10, let's refresh it again. And 10.2 is running on ESXi 2. Okay. To delete that rule, to disable this rule, we go to Affinity rules, right click, edit, and uncheck this one. Okay. Now this rule is disabled. Okay. So like that, you can create the affinity, anti-affinity, or host VM affinity roles. Okay. So this is our lab. Complete this lab, then we go on assessment. Magesh, share your screen.
We are doing page 113, right? From here I have to start, right?
1 second. It's task 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello? Hello?
Just 1 minute. Yeah, it's done. Step 11, 10 is done, and 11 also is done.
Oh. For me, I'll finish. My guys, have you finished?
It's finished?
Yeah, for me, I have finished.
Magesh, what about you?
Yeah, done, finished.
Okay, so let's move on assessment. So Magesh, open your on-demand content and start the module 10 assessment. Select the dashboard.
Yeah.
What is this?
First one. The first one. The first.
The first.
The first. This is the second.
So in this module we have 10 questions and we have 15 minutes. So in a vSphere environment, a host is removed from the cluster and that has enough resources to satisfy the resolution of its virtual machines and resource. How does cluster respond to this situation? The cluster demand the additional resource for the load balance. The cluster adjusts the resource allocation to reflect the amount of the resource. Cluster move the necessary cluster. Did the
So,
right. Sorry?
Which one? D.
It's B.
okay.
B,
Yeah.
B. Yeah.
Yeah. When does
When,
vSphere DRS cluster become overcommitted?
when the host fail. When host fail.
Okay. Which of the factors influence the migration recommendations for vSphere DRS cluster that have a default automation level of manual or partially automated?
Partially. Yeah, it's load balancing and anti-affinity rules.
Okay. Really have to read the theory. How can an administrator improve the performance when the disk IO load and imbalanced for a virtual machine? How can
There
administrator?
is multipathing.
Okay, storage multipathing. Which automation level of vSphere DRS cluster displays recommendation for manual migration of virtual machine? So it's
In manual or partially automated. So it's a single choice. So select the partially automated. Yeah, or in fully automated, your virtual machine will be move automatically, migrate automatically.
okay. What are the prerequisites of an EFX host that is added to a vSphere DRS cluster? The host in a cluster must be part of vSphere vMotion network in order to use load balancing. Okay.
Yeah,
All
it's right.
I think this one.
Yeah, you need to choose two.
Data store must be accessible by the destination. The disk of virtual machine should be removed from the shared storage that is accessible by the destination.
What about B? What is the B?
All Mac
All hosts should be configured to use the shared storage. Yeah, it's right. You must have a remote network and at least one shared storage between all the hosts. What are the possible actions that an administrator can perform on a virtual machine when the host is placed in the maintenance mode? Yeah, install the more memory or remove the host from the cluster. You cannot deploy or restart your virtual machines when your host in the maintenance mode.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Which component does vSphere high availability rely on when the resource needed for a virtual machine failover is not available in the host? Which component does vSphere rely on the
DRS. DRS.
Yes. Yeah. Which setting are not re-established when VRS is disabled and then enable later? Cluster recommendation history, cluster resource pool hierarchy, affinity rule, automation. I think affinity rule.
Affinity rule and pool hierarchy. Resource pool hierarchy.
Okay. How is the priority level for each migration recommendation in vSphere DRS computed? Which is how is the
Load
priority
balancing matrix.
load balancing
Balance.
matrix?
Load imbalance matrix. Like level 1, level 2, level 3. That is the matrix.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, so this is our chapter module number 10. So we have two more modules, update manager and troubleshooting. Okay, so these are the small modules. Okay, so we complete those modules in tomorrow class. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, you have any query, you have any doubts, anywhere? Magesh, Ben?
No, actually, I have a lot of doubts, but the problem is I am now got into a new team. There is so much of work. I'm actually
Okay.
not time
Okay.
to read the theory. Actually, I want to read the theory. When I read the
Okay.
theory, I'll get a lot of doubts. See, lab, what I'm doing is I'm just copying and I'm pasting. It's like copy paste.
Okay, so after the class,
I should do the lab without manual. Then only I can say yes, I'm confident. Now,
yeah.
if the lab is not there for the next page, I can't do. I'll not. That's the
Yeah,
fact.
so after the class, reset your lab, make a make a request on that support and reset your lab, then complete your lab again without help of manual. Okay.
Without manual, when I'm clearing, then only I can say yes.
You just check what is the task in lab 1, lab 2 and complete your labs. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, that's
Okay.
what we need to do.
Yeah.
For that at least we need some time. So yeah. So yeah. But
So today we complete our class at this time, and you have approx 2.5 hours. So read the theory and write down what kinds doubt you have. So tomorrow we discuss about your doubts. Okay, and complete our modules.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Cool. Thank you, Naveen.
Okay.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Okay, Ben.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So find your doubts and make a list of your doubts. So tomorrow we discuss about those.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Bye bye. Take care.
Bye.
Same to you.
Bye.
Uh,